Hi, my name is Kelly Bishop, and I am giving my persuasive speech on why you should work for a small business over a large corporation. These are my 5 people. Oh my gosh. Have you ever worked for a company for 1 year, 2 years? How about 6 years? Did you get treated fairly every single year you worked for that company? My life is full of ups and downs, but the one thing that was always stable and stayed the same was my job. I started working at Claire's at the age of 16. I started as a sales associate, and when I turned 18, I was promoted to third key. Then at 19, I was promoted to assistant manager, and at 20, promoted to manager. This didn't come easy. It was a lot of pushing and hard work, along with really getting to know my job and what the company was all about. I had moved to Pocatello to manage the store there, and then decided that I wanted to move back to Boise. I was going to take a pay cut and a demotion and go to school just to come back. I was then offered a position and asked that I choose not to go to school, but instead manage the high-volume store in Boise where I started. I agreed, and I was in the running against another manager. I increased my current store's numbers greatly. I was just dust away from a perfect store, no problems with dress code, and had worked in that store 4 years in a row prior to moving to Pocatello. The manager against me had steady numbers, lots of problems with dress code, but she had been with the company longer. Needless to say, she got seniority over me. Fortunately for me, that lasted about 3 months, and then she quit, so I got the store. Since that little blip in the system at work, many more things got overlooked, and I realized that corporations really have no compassion. They don't do what they can to keep the good people around. In my work alone, I watched 2 different managers who had been with the company for over 10 years get pushed out of their stores and in the end asked to leave. That is why my goal is to convince you to work for a small business before considering working for a corporation. Working for a corporation has advantages and disadvantages that individuals really should consider while looking for employment. I have really looked into figuring out which would be a better company to work for, a corporation or a small business. I'm going to tell you the major advantages and disadvantages for working at a corporation compared to a small business and why you should consider working for the small business. The main points I will cover are interaction with management, replacement, and knowledge of the business. I am sure each and every one of you could argue my points, but I'm going to tell you from experience what has happened to me on both sides of the situation, and hopefully you will understand my direction. When talking about the first time you tried to ask your manager's boss a question and getting a reply that was a beat-around-the-bush answer is because you're not direct to them. You're direct to your manager. Usually with every corporate job I have had, there is something called an open door policy, which means pretty much if you have any questions or concerns, you can visit your manager first, and if you don't feel comfortable talking to them, then there is a number you can call. Because of this policy, I made sure for that the duration of me managing the store, I would create a comfortable condition so that my employees could talk to me first. It almost seems that there is no real communication to any of the higher-ups, though. When I was managing a store, I had access to the phone numbers for the regional manager and a few more people in the corporate office. But when it came down to calling them, I guess you could call it feeling nervous. I didn't feel welcome or comfortable to call them, even though I had been given their cell phone numbers. I worked with a small business about a year ago and had a completely different experience. When I needed to talk to someone or had an idea to improve a process, I was able to get to the owner directly. When you are given an opportunity to meet an entrepreneur and be working with the business, you end up feeling comfortable asking questions, and the relationship building went a lot smoother with the managers above me. You've probably heard it at your job or heard someone talking about it, the words, "you are replaceable." What that means is that if you leave today, the company will be able to have someone to take your position in a short time, or they could possibly have already been scoping out who they wanted to take your place. This can make a person feel completely unmotivated. Why work so hard when it won't make a difference on what you do today if you can be replaced so easily tomorrow? According to Donna Fiscaldo on Small versus Large Companies, she states that when you get a job at a small company, oftentimes you are considered part of the family, so letting you go may not be as easy. When you are working in a small company, you are part of a small group of people who have gotten to know you at a professional and sometimes personal level. Having to replace you would be difficult because they trust you and know how you work, and that isn't easy to find or replace. Not only are you hard to replace, but the knowledge you have of the company at a small firm is difficult to overlook. When working in a corporation, they want you to know about the products. From experience, I can tell you everything there is to know about earrings, a few types of metals, piercing ears, what jewelry goes with what, and the day-to-day operations of the business. What I can't tell you is how much the company makes a year in profits, why they don't sell on stock anymore, and other insider information that the employees don't have access to. I have no idea where the products come from other than the fact that they are mostly made in China. That's information I would have to research for a long time to find, or just not know at all because the company does not give me access to it. Working for a small business is a little different. You get to know the operations and even how the owners operate. They are looking for people who might take over the place, or a long-term employee over a few short-term employees. You get to know where products come from and different processes inside of the company. There's a buying department at Claire's, but in a small business, if you are picking out the products, you are fulfilling the buying department along with your job duties. Overall, there are many different differences when working for a corporation or a small business. Some may argue that the insurance benefits outweigh all of the other negatives in a corporation. Having interaction with management, being easily replaceable, and knowing more about the business you are working in may not be the most important factors while looking for a job, but I hope these 3 points have given you a different perspective on the job. I hope you will think twice about taking a job you intend on moving up with in the company, if it's a corporation or a small business, and how much compassion you want from it. Being a part of a big company is a great thing, don't get me wrong, but being a part of a small business, you're making a difference in the community around you and giving hope to others that small businesses can be successful.